For 528 years, one painting has refused to be solved. You have seen it before. A long table, 13 men, a quiet meal painted onto a monastery wall in Milan. It looks simple. It looks finished. It looks like nothing more than a religious scene you have scrolled past 100 times without stopping. But researchers have stood in front of this wall for 5 centuries, and they still cannot agree on what Leonardo da Vinci actually hid inside it. Some see a code, some see a confession, some see a warning aimed at people who were not born yet. And a few of them, the ones who studied it the longest, walked away convinced the painting contains a date, not a date from the past, a date that has not happened yet. We will get to that date. It is the strangest thing any researcher has ever pulled out of this wall, and it is the reason serious people have called the Last Supper a prophecy instead of a painting. But before we get there, you need to understand something. You need to understand why this painting has resisted every attempt to decode it. Because the most unsettling thing about the Last Supper is not what Leonardo painted in the center. It is what he left in a half-moon of space above it, a place almost nobody looks. Keep that in mind. We come back to it at the end, and when we do, it changes everything. Start with the wall itself. The Last Supper is not on canvas. It is painted directly onto the dining hall wall of a convent called Santa Maria delle Grazie. It is enormous, about 15 feet tall and 29 feet wide. Leonardo began it around 1495 and finished it around 1498. Do the math forward and you land on 528 years of people staring at it. And almost from the moment he finished, it began to die. Here is the original sin. Real fresco is painted fast, onto wet plaster, so the color soaks into the wall and becomes part of it forever. Leonardo hated working fast. He wanted to blend, to layer, to go back and revise for months, so he refused to paint a fresco. He invented his own method instead, painting onto dry plaster with a mix of tempera and oil. It failed. Within about 20 years, the paint was already flaking off the wall in his own lifetime. Leonardo lived long enough to watch his masterpiece begin to peel. Then it got worse. In 1652, monks decided the hall needed a bigger doorway, so they cut one. Straight through the bottom of the painting, they sliced off Christ's feet to make room for a door. Napoleon's troops used the room as a stable and reportedly threw objects at the apostles' heads. In 1943, a British bomb collapsed part of the building. The wall survived only because someone had stacked sandbags against it. Now here is the killer fact. After the last major restoration, experts estimated that only a fraction of what you see today is Leonardo's actual brushwork. Centuries of decay, amateur repainting, and touch-ups mean large parts of this painting were finished by other hands, later hands, guessing hands. So think about what that does to every theory you are about to hear. How do you decode a secret message when half the letters have fallen off the wall? How do you read an artist's hidden intentions in a face that a restorer repainted 300 years after he died? This is exactly the problem, and it is exactly why the painting became a magnet for obsessives. When a masterpiece is this damaged and this famous, every missing piece becomes an invitation. Every gap becomes a place to hide a theory. And the results came back stranger than anyone expected. Look at the moment Leonardo chose to freeze. Every other painter who tackled this scene painted the calm version, the blessing, the bread, and the wine. Judas shoved off to one side, small and obvious, sometimes without a halo, so you knew instantly who the villain was. Leonardo threw that out. He painted the worst second in the room. The instant right after Christ says 6 words, "One of you will betray me," and the table detonates. 12 men recoil in the same breath. Hands fly up, bodies twist. You can almost hear the noise. Now look closer, because the first mystery is what Leonardo did not paint. There are no halos, not one. Not above the apostles, not even above Christ. Every earlier version of this scene used a golden disc to mark the holy from the human. Leonardo erased them all. He lit Christ with a window instead, a soft, natural glow from behind his head, and left everyone else as ordinary, frightened men. Ask yourself why that matters. Strip away the halos and you strip away the labels. Suddenly you cannot tell the saint from the traitor by looking. They all have the same skin, the same fear, the same hands. Which means you have to search for Judas. And that is the point. Find him now. He is not off to the side. He is pulled into the group, leaning back, his face dropped into shadow. In his right hand, he clutches a small bag. 30 pieces of silver, the price of the betrayal, hidden in a fist at a dinner table. And watch his elbow. He has knocked over a small dish of salt. In Leonardo's time, spilled salt was an omen, bad luck, a broken bond, a covenant coming apart. It is a tiny detail, a few grains scattered on a tablecloth, and it is the whole story of the painting compressed into one accident. Then look at the bread. Judas and Christ are reaching toward the same dish at the same moment. That is not decoration. That is Leonardo staging the exact prophecy from Scripture. The one who dips his hand with mine in the dish, he is the one. He froze it mid-reach. So, here is what Leonardo actually did. He hid the villain inside the crowd, gave him no mark, no horns, no halo of shame, and forced you to hunt for him among faces that look just like everyone else. Betrayal does not announce itself. It sits at your table. It eats from your bowl. It reaches for the same bread you do, and you do not see it until it is already too late. That alone would be enough. But Leonardo was not finished, because there is a hand in this painting holding something it should not be holding. Look at the cluster of figures just to the left of Christ. There is a hand there gripping a knife. The blade is bare, pulled back low, turned away from the light. For a long time, people could not even agree whose hand it was. From certain angles, it looks disconnected from any body, floating, which is why some early viewers called it the phantom hand. Restoration settled the argument. The knife belongs to Peter. Simon Peter, the disciple who, later that same night, draws a blade in the Garden of Gethsemane and cuts off a servant's ear. So think about what Leonardo is doing with time here. This dinner has barely been interrupted. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been named. And Leonardo has already armed the man who is going to commit violence hours from now. The weapon is out. It is under the table. It is pointed, roughly, toward the very side where Judas is leaning. It turns the whole meal into something colder. This is not just a room full of shock. It is a room where one man is stunned, one man is hiding silver, and one man is already reaching for steel. The violence is not coming. The violence is already in the room, held low, waiting. Most people look at the Last Supper and see a sacred, peaceful scene. Leonardo painted a powder keg and lit the fuse. And that is still only the surface. Because underneath the human drama, researchers found something colder and more deliberate. A structure, a design. Numbers. Step back from the faces and look at the shape of the whole thing. The first thing you notice is that everything points at Christ, not by accident. Leonardo used one-point perspective, and he built the entire architecture of the room, the ceiling beams, the wall panels, the edges of the tapestries, so that every line races back to a single vanishing point. That point sits just behind Christ's right temple. Sit with that. He did not aim the geometry at Christ's heart, or his hands, or the bread. He aimed it at the side of his head, at the place behind the eyes. He built a room whose every straight line drills toward the spot where thought happens. Now look at Christ's body. His arms spread down and out, his head at the peak. He forms a near-perfect triangle, a stable, sealed, three-sided shape in the dead center of all that chaos. And a triangle in Christian symbolism is the Trinity, 3 in 1. The number 3 keeps returning once you start counting. There are 3 windows on the back wall behind Christ. The 12 apostles are broken into 4 groups of 3. 3 is the divine number. 4 is the earthly number, the 4 corners, the 4 seasons. 4 groups of 3. Leonardo fused heaven and earth in the seating chart. And then there is the ratio. Researchers who measured the composition claim it is threaded with the golden ratio, roughly 1 to 1.618. It is the proportion that shows up in seashells, in flower heads, in the spiral of a galaxy. Some call it the divine proportion. Leonardo knew it intimately. He drew the illustrations for a whole book about it. Push further, and you find people tracing the Fibonacci sequence through the layout. 1 table, 3 windows. Groups that resolve into the same spiral of numbers that nature uses to grow a sunflower. Now, is all of this deliberate? That is the honest question, and we will come back to it hard at the end. But whether Leonardo planned every ratio or not, the effect is undeniable. He built a scene of pure panic and buried a perfect, silent order underneath it, chaos on the surface, mathematics in the bones, and hidden inside that order is an absence, something that should be on the table and is not. This is the First Supper, the original one. The night Christians believed the cup of wine became something sacred forever. So look for the cup. It is not there. There is no single, central, glowing chalice at the heart of the Last Supper. There is wine. There are small glasses scattered along the table. But the one object you would expect Leonardo to place dead center, the Holy Grail itself, the most sought-after relic in the Western imagination, is simply missing. For most of history, people barely noticed. Then a question started spreading. Why would Leonardo, a man who calculated the angle of every beam, who measured the composition to the golden ratio, forget to paint the single most important object in the entire story? The obvious answer is that he did not forget. He left it out on purpose, and that empty space became the loudest space in the painting. Because if the Grail is not on the table, then where is it? One reading, the one that has launched 1,000 books, goes like this. Maybe the Grail was never a cup at all. Maybe the vessel that carried the sacred blood was a person, a bloodline, and maybe Leonardo pointed straight at that person and put them right next to Christ, in plain sight, for 528 years. Which brings us to the most argued over figure in the history of Western art, the one sitting at Christ's right hand. You already know this debate, even if you have never heard the details. Look at the figure immediately to Christ's right, your left as you face the wall. Soft features, long hair, a slender neck, hands folded gently, leaning away from Christ, tilted, calm, in the middle of all that shouting. Tradition has a simple answer. That is John. The youngest apostle, the beloved one, and in Renaissance painting young men were routinely given soft, beardless, almost feminine faces. Every art historian will tell you this. It was a convention, nothing more. But over the centuries, viewers kept asking a different question. What if that is not John? What if Leonardo seated a woman at the right hand of Christ, and the woman is Mary Magdalene? This is the theory Dan Brown turned into one of the best-selling novels of all time. And the visual argument is genuinely hard to unsee once you see it. Look at the space between Christ and the figure beside them. Their bodies lean apart, and the gap between them forms a clean letter V. In this reading, the V is an ancient symbol of the sacred feminine, the shape of a chalice, the vessel. And the two figures together, the way they mirror and lean, trace out the shape of a letter M. M for Magdalene, some say. M for marriage, say others. Supporters point to old texts outside the official Bible, like the Gnostic Gospel of Philip, which describe Magdalene as the companion Christ loved most. If you believe those texts, then a married Christ and a woman holding sacred authority is not a scandal Leonardo invented. It is a secret he inherited and smuggled onto a wall where the church would see it every single day and never realize. Here is why this theory refuses to die. If it is true, it does not just change a painting. It challenges the foundation of an institution built on a celibate Christ and male authority. That is a heavy thing to hang on the tilt of a neck and an empty triangle of space. And most scholars push back hard. They say it is John, it was always John, the feminine look is period style, and the V is just two people leaning away from a shock. They are probably right. But hold on to that figure. Remember the softness, the calm, the way this one person does not seem to be reacting like everyone else. We are going to come back to that stillness, because it connects to the darkest reading of the entire painting. For now, keep going. Because the hidden woman is not the only code people claim to have found. Some of them are not symbols at all. Some of them are sounds. Look at the table again. Look at the food. There is a fish. And people cannot even agree what kind. Some say eel, some say herring. And in the wordplay of Leonardo's Italy, that distinction carried weight. One word for eel could hint at religious instruction. A word for herring could hint at denial and the renouncing of faith. A single fish and two opposite meanings, depending on which one you think he painted. But there is a deeper layer to the fish, older than Leonardo. In the earliest days of Christianity, when believers were hunted and killed, they could not wear a cross openly, so they used a secret sign. A simple fish. The Greek word for fish, ichthys, worked as an acronym. Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. A password you could scratch in the dirt and wipe away. So, when Leonardo places a disputed fish at a table full of people about to be scattered and persecuted, some researchers read it as a nod to that hidden history, a secret sign, at a supper full of secret signs. Then the reading goes cosmic. There is a theory that the 12 apostles are not just 12 men, they are the 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 figures around a central sun, and the sun is Christ. The panic on the wall becomes a clock. The 4 groups of 3 become the 4 seasons, 3 months each. In this version, Leonardo did not paint a dinner. He painted the wheel of the sky, with Christ at the center as the source of all light, and the disciples orbiting him like constellations. It sounds like a stretch, and maybe it is, but keep the idea of the zodiac in your head. Signs, stars, a calendar hidden in a religious scene, because it is going to matter enormously in about 8 minutes when a Vatican researcher claims to have used exactly this kind of astrological code to pull a specific date out of this painting. And then there is the theory that Leonardo did not hide a picture at all. He hid a song. In 2007, an Italian musician named Giovanni Maria Palla said something that sounded impossible. He said, "The Last Supper is playable." Here is his claim. Take the painting and lay a musical staff across it, the 5 horizontal lines that music is written on. Now look at where things fall on those lines. The loaves of bread on the table, the hands of the figures raised and lowered along the length of the scene. Palla argued that these objects sit almost exactly where musical notes would sit, that their heights map onto pitches. But you cannot read them left to right, you have to read them right to left, which is exactly how Leonardo wrote in his private notebooks. He wrote backwards, in mirror script, so that his notes could only be read with a mirror. Read the painting his way, right to left, and Palla said the notes line up into an actual sequence. So he played it. What comes out is short, only about 40 seconds, and it is not triumphant. It is slow, solemn, hymn-like. People who have heard it describe it as mournful, almost like a requiem, a piece of music you would play at a funeral. Think about where that music would be hiding. In the bread, in the hands, in the exact objects Christ is about to name as his body on the last night of his life. A funeral song, buried in the loaves, at the meal before the death. Now, is it real? Skeptics say you can find music in anything if you are willing to place the staff where you want it. That is a fair objection, and we will honor it at the end. But even the skeptics admit the strange part. When you follow Leonardo's own backwards writing system and read the painting the way he read everything, the notes do resolve into something that sounds intentional, not random noise, a melody. And if you think a hidden song is the eeriest thing in this painting, wait. Because when one researcher folded the painting onto itself, faces appeared that Leonardo never seems to have painted at all. This one is harder to explain and harder to forget. A researcher named Slavisa Pesci tried a simple experiment. He took a transparent copy of The Last Supper, flipped it into a mirror image, and laid it back over the original. So now you have the painting, and the painting reversed, overlapping in the same frame. What appeared was not a blur. It was new figures. At the 2 far ends of the table, where the mirrored versions overlap, shapes emerged that look like 2 figures in armor. People describe them as knights, or Templar-like guardians, standing at the edges of the scene, framing it. Guards that are not in the painting until you fold it onto itself. And near the center, in the overlap beside Christ, something even stranger. A figure that appears to be holding a small bundle. To many eyes, it looks like a person cradling an infant. A child at the Last Supper that no one painted and no one can point to on the wall, that only appears when the painting meets its own reflection. Now, be careful here. This is almost certainly a trick of symmetry. Overlap any roughly symmetrical image with its mirror, and your brain will start assembling faces and bodies out of the coincidences. That is how human vision works. We are built to find people in noise. But you can understand why the image haunted people. A hidden knight. A hidden child. A whole second scene sleeping inside the first, invisible until you reflect it. Whether Leonardo intended it or not, the mirror is exactly how he thought. He wrote in mirror script his entire life. He may have been the most mirror-minded genius who ever lived. So we have a hidden traitor, a hidden weapon, a hidden woman, a hidden song, and hidden faces in the reflection. Every one of them argued over for centuries. And every one of them, it turns out, is a warm-up. Because there is one more claim about this painting. It is the reason serious researchers have used the word prophecy, and it does not come from the table at all. It comes from that half moon of space above it, the one I asked you to remember at the very beginning. This is the part that changes how you see everything. Above the Last Supper, arching over the whole scene, there is a lunette, a half-moon panel. It holds painted garlands and coats of arms, and for 5 centuries almost everyone treated it as pure decoration, a frame, background, nobody's idea of a secret. Then a Vatican researcher named Sabrina Sforza Galizia said she had spent years studying that lunette and that it was not decoration at all. She said it was a puzzle, a mathematical and astrological puzzle, and she claimed she had solved it. Here is how she said it works. Leonardo used the signs of the zodiac, the same cosmic clock we talked about earlier, and he used the 24 letters of the Latin alphabet to stand in for the 24 hours of a day. A code built from stars and letters and time, and when she worked it through, she said it produced a specific span of dates. She claimed the painting encodes the end of the world, not vaguely, specifically. According to her reading, Leonardo marked a universal flood, a great deluge that begins on March 21st in the year 4006 and ends on the 1st of November of that same year. A global catastrophe with a start date and an end date, hidden above a dinner scene, waiting almost 2,000 more years to arrive. And here is the part that stops you cold. In her reading, Leonardo did not see it as pure destruction. He saw it as a reset, the end of one humanity and the beginning of another, a final reckoning, the sum of all things, after which the world starts again. Remember what we said at the start. Leonardo lived in a time when the wrong idea could get you destroyed. So, the theory goes, he did what he always did. He hid it. He buried his most dangerous belief, his vision of how and when everything ends, not in a book that could be burned, but in a painted room that the church itself would protect and preserve for centuries without ever knowing what it was guarding. Now look back at the whole painting with that in your head. A meal that is really about betrayal, a cup that is missing, a woman who might be erased from scripture, a funeral hymn in the bread, and above all of it, a hidden countdown to the end of the world. Suddenly, the panic on those 12 faces reads differently. It is not just shock at a traitor in the room. In this reading, it is the human race meeting its own ending. Leonardo did not paint one bad night in Jerusalem. He painted the Last Supper of everyone. And he wrote the date on the wall above their heads, in a language of stars and hours, and trusted that no one would understand it until it was almost time. That is the claim that has kept this painting dangerous for 528 years. But before you let it swallow you, we have to do the honest thing. We have to turn around and ask the hardest question of all. What if none of it is real? Step back from the wall for a moment, and be a skeptic on purpose. Because there is a powerful case that says almost every secret we just walked through is a story we told ourselves. Start with the biggest name of all, the Priory of Sion, the ancient secret society that supposedly guarded the bloodline of Christ, with Leonardo as one of its grand masters. It is the backbone of 100 conspiracy books, and it is a proven hoax. It was invented in the 20th century by a Frenchman named Pierre Plantard, who forged documents and planted them to build himself a fake lineage. There is no medieval priory. There never was. So, forget the Grand Master. Forget the sworn guardians of the Grail. That foundation was fabricated in living memory. Now turn that same cold eye on the rest. The hidden woman? Art historians say the soft face is simply how young men were painted in Leonardo's time, and that his own notes refer to that figure as John. The missing chalice? Plenty of versions of the scene leave it out. The spilled salt, the knife, the left hand of a traitor, those were common visual shorthand any Renaissance viewer would recognize, not a private code. The hidden hymn and the zodiac and the Doomsday Date all lean on the same weakness. If you are allowed to choose where to lay the musical staff, or which letters map to which hours, you can pull almost any pattern out of a complex image. This is a real feature of the human mind. It is called pareidolia. Our brains are pattern-finding machines. We see faces in clouds, animals in wallpaper, meaning in coincidence. Show a person a rich, chaotic image and tell them a secret is hidden inside, and they will find one, whether or not it was ever put there. And then there is the fact we opened with. Only a fraction of this painting is still Leonardo's own brushwork. It has been repainted, restored, and guessed at by other hands for centuries. So some of the very details people decode may not be Leonardo's at all. You might be reading the secret intentions of a restorer from the 1700s. So here is where the honesty lands us. Most of the codes probably are not codes. The Doomsday Date is one researcher's disputed reading, not a proven prophecy. The knights in the mirror are almost certainly symmetry playing tricks on willing eyes. And yet, the real mystery survives all of it, because you do not need a single hidden code to explain why this painting has held the world hostage for 528 years. Leonardo did the deepest thing an artist can do. He stripped away the halos, erased the line between the holy and the human, and painted 12 faces at the exact instant they learn that one of the people they trust most is a traitor. He did not hide a secret in the pigment. He hid it in the faces. Who reacts? Who hides? Who reaches for a weapon? And who, at the very center, sits perfectly still, because they already know. That is the thing you cannot restore away and cannot debunk. Not a code, not a conspiracy, a portrait of the exact moment trust breaks. And once you have seen that, you cannot unsee it. The next time this painting appears in front of you, you will not start with the cup, or the woman, or the date above the frame. You will start with the faces. You will look for the fear. You will look for the fist around the silver. You will look for the stillness in the middle of the storm. The meal changes. The wall changes. A quiet scene you scrolled past 100 times becomes the loudest room in the history of art. That is what Leonardo hid. That is what 528 years of researchers keep circling. And that is what still refuses to be solved. So I want to know which one got under your skin. Was it the knife that should not be there? Was it the woman the church would have buried? Was it the funeral hymn baked into the bread? Or was it the date above the frame, the flood in the year 4006, hidden where no one thought to look? Tell me in the comments. And if there is another famous painting you want us to pull apart frame by frame like this, drop the name below. We are already building the list. Because if Leonardo hid this much in one meal on one wall, imagine what is still waiting inside the Mona Lisa.